recording on this computer. Sorry. So the requirements for the number guessing game, the user should be able to guess a number until they guess the right number. The user should be able to input a number and click a button to submit the number. The web page should inform the user to guess higher or lower, or tell the user if they guessed the correct number. The web page should also list all the guessed numbers the user guessed during the session. There are not a million ways, but there are a plethora of ways of how to do this. And this is just what I'm going to show you is just one way I'm going to do it. You could have done it a different way. More than likely, if I went to every single student who completed this challenge, every one of you would have done it a different way. All right, so we have step 3, release 3. Okay, so let me just fork this over to my GitHub, my personal GitHub. It's copying it over. I'm going to run through this pretty quickly, just for time's sake, because we have a lot to get through today. And Tom Preet, I'm in my personal GitHub. I'm going to git clone it. I'm in here, cd, desktop, Lima, list it, git clone, number guessing game, ls, cd, right here's the number guessing game, cd, number guessing game, code, open up into a new window, and I've got my app.js, HTML, and CSS file. Hello, Lima Platoon. All right. So I am going to create a new branch, ls, so get checkout -b solution. So now I'm on the new branch solution. I don't need to get pull or anything. I'll clear that. So the basic architecture of an HTML file has a head and a body within this doc type HTML and this HTML tag. So within the head, just like a head of a human, of a person, all like the metadata, the logic, anything you're importing, any scripts that you're importing from other files, CSS files, whether if you want a custom Google font, you can import it in here. So everything goes in the head. And then everything that actually shows up on the page, on the DOM, goes within the body tag. So let's open this up. I'm just typing command open index HTML. And why does this do this? All right. That means, one second, new Finder. Oh, I don't know what I wanted. There we go. So I've got this let's play a number guessing game that shows up in here. And in here I've got, your link to your CSS file should go into this link tag with the actual path to my CSS file. And I also have this script tag with async defer. I really only need defer. You could throw both in there. It's not going to do anything, but I usually just keep it with defer. Is where your JavaScript file can go. Does anybody know of a way to write JavaScript without having to import a JavaScript file?
Put it in between the script tags.
So put it in between the script tags, like in here. And
yes.
And move this down. So go ahead.
Do you have to move it in the body? I mean, I don't really know. I didn't try this because I thought we were supposed to do the app. But everywhere I looked at online that I was trying to get help solving other stuff with the problem, they had it. I don't know if they had it in the header, but is it supposed to go in the body?
I don't know. I think it depends on where you want it to run. So if it just runs down, like it runs from top to bottom, the file. If you want your JavaScript to actually start running, I think you can write it in here then, But
I think it also depends on if your code's gonna immediately start executing, or if you have like a call that happens somewhere else later on.
yeah, so if you click a button or something and then it runs the script. Yeah. But this is generally best practice. This is what you'll see most of the time going forward. It's good to have your code separate instead of having everything in one file. So it's good to like import your JavaScript and your CSS. I know Noah was showing you yesterday how you can do inline styling, but that's generally not a scalable solution or best practice. You could do it for like quick fixes here and there for like one-offs, but generally speaking, it's good to have your JavaScript file and your CSS files separate. If you're just writing raw HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Once we get into React, there's so many other resources out there to help you write JavaScript as well as CSS. And it all depends on your style ethos of how your organization is ran. It's just, yeah, there's just plenty of different ways how you can write CSS. All right. So we have a play a number guessing game. And here we have our styles and we have our app.js. So all our functions should go here that will interact with our web page or DOM. What is the DOM? What does the DOM stand for?
Document Object Model.
Document Object Model. And what does that actually mean? Like, what is the document object model?
It's the actual page.
Yeah, so it's like what shows up on the page in here. And you can actually see it if I press Command Option I, if you're on a Mac, it opens up the Chrome developer tools to the side here. Or mine's on the side, this is where I like it. And you're going to be using the Chrome developer tools most of the time when you're writing front end. You'll probably always have this open all the time when you're writing the front end. This is where you can debug the front end if there's any errors or anything like that. And we have right here, if I just type in, what is it? Document. So the document object model is literally just a tree of all the different elements on a page. So we have the HTML, we have the head, we have the body, and each one of these individual elements, these tags, that's called a node. So it's an HTML node. So if I do like H1, nope, document. I don't even know if this works. No. But yeah, so each one of these are nodes. Yeah, so the document object model is just like a tree of all the HTML elements on the web page. So first thing I want to do is import my first. No, I don't want to import anything. I just want to get the web page looking like it should. So I've got.
Could you zoom in a little bit on your screen?
Oh,
Just a little
thank you.
bigger?
Oh, whoops. Is that better?
That's better, thanks.
Thank you. So I've got let's play a number guessing game in my nav. And I'm going to create a div outside of that that says, what should I say? Should be let's just have it be a p tag and say, guess a number between 1 and 100. Because you want to tell the user essentially how to play the game. So I saved it. I refreshed it. All right, let's guess a number between 1 and 100. And up here, I see this title. I want to change that. Up here in the head, we have this title tag. This is what shows up on as the title of the browser tab. Same game. So if I refresh it up here, so I've got number guessing game. So I've got a p tag. I'm going to create another div. It's all about the divs. And I'm going to create an input. So to accept a user input. And the input tag is one of a few tags or several tags that does not have an encompassing closing tab, like the backslash input. It just has that. All right. And if I refresh, here's my input. But I'm going to Google input tag HTML and W3 schools. I've got a form. I'm actually not going to use a form this time. I'm just going to do everything in vanilla JavaScript. Input. So the input tag has all these different attributes like type. What else does it have? Autofocus checked. These are all different attributes that you can have within the input tag. For mine, where is it? I'm just going to have the type. Should it be number? Because I'm doing a number, name, input, number, and I'm going to have a placeholder because right now it doesn't have any placeholder. So I'm going to have a placeholder in there. Placeholder, example 50. All right. So if I refresh, cool. And if I refresh again, there's my placeholder. I actually don't like having this because I don't want a user to have to like click everything. And I just don't like the way that looks. So I'm just going to actually make this a text. And in my JavaScript, I might throw some logic in there that might convert it to a number. We'll see. We'll see if we get there. All right. Let's look at what else. Guess the number until it gets the right number. Input a number, and then click a button to submit the number. So I'm just going to create another div, just to keep things simple, and use a button, and that says submit number. All right. So right now I just have everything separated by divs to guarantee that it's on a new line. So if I didn't have this div here, and I had just had the input and the button all encapsulated in one div, it'll be on the same line. Just for my specific design choice, I want them on two different lines. So I have them in two separate divs. Cool. And I think that's it for right now. Guess a number between 1 and 100. Oh, I don't say like how to submit a number. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. You'd think it's self-explanatory, but don't ever assume your users know how to use your application. So I'm going to create another div with a p tag. And I'm going to say input a number and click. So input a number below and click submit number. There we go. So now when I type something in and submit it, it's supposed to check whether or not I guessed the number high, low, or if I actually guessed the correct number. But when I'm clicking, so this is just a static web page. It doesn't actually do anything yet because I haven't added any logic to the application. So what I'm going to need to do is add my JavaScript file and then start writing JavaScript code to interact with my web page based off of some user interaction with the web page. So inside my script tag, this is where I actually import my JavaScript file into the source. And this is exactly like the path to my JavaScript file. My JavaScript file here is just called app.js. says console log, hello, Lima Platoon. And right here in my console, nothing's actually like running right now. All right, so I'm gonna import app.js. And this defer, once my web page loads and everything shows up on the screen, then it's gonna run this app.js file. And inside the app.js, I'm literally console logging, hello, Lima Platoon. So if I can console log, so then my JavaScript should show up here in the console in the Chrome developer tools. So if I refresh, there it goes. It says hello, Lima Platoon. Can everyone see that? Right there. And here I can inspect the elements, and I can literally highlight this and hover over the different elements and how long each element is. So this one, each element essentially takes up the entire page. And you see it's like a P tag, color, font, margin. And here it's a button, like this input is only a length of 131 pixels. Cool. Then this number button, or this submit number button, is, those are the attributes of it. Can also go here and it highlights in the elements page, or the elements part of the Chrome developer tools, what is actually being highlighted on the screen. All right, so that's cool. While I'm doing that, I might as well import my style sheets. So again, inside the script tag, we import our app.js or JavaScript. For any styling, we import a link, and we link the relation to style sheet. And the href is just to locate essentially the path to my styles, or path to my CSS. So if I refresh it, everything gets centered. And that is because inside my styles, I already have some basic default styling. So inside the body tag, actually, inside the body, which encapsulates everything on the page, I've got the font family, Helvetica New as default. If the web browser or the web browser the user is using does not support this specific text or the specific font, it defaults then to sans serif. And if I had other ones, it would just keep on going down the line until it met one. I have font weight is 300. Text align is center. And that's why everything's currently centered on the page. And then we have the H1 tag, has a font weight of 400, which makes it bold. Does anybody have any questions about importing JavaScript, importing the styling? Oh. All right, so now let's get to the actual logic of the page, or of the application. So the first thing I want to do when this page loads, I want the computer to guess or pick a random number. What does it say? Yeah, like the computer, I don't know where to say. Yep, the computer will pick a random number between 1 and 100, and which you will have to guess. So in the app.js, I'm going to just say let random number. I'm going to assign it to 0, and then I'm going to write a function that says pick random number and execute that. So let pick random number. I'm going to create an arrow function. You can write this as a normal function if you want, but I say random number equals math.floor, math.random, and times it by 100. I think I just add 1 to that. I'm going to console log the random number just to see if it works, and then I'm going to return that random number. So when this app.js file runs, when I refresh it, go into the console, it just says hello Lima Platoon. But my random number, I want it to print my random number. How come my random number is not printing out to the console? Can anybody see why?
It's because you're not calling your.
Oh, yeah. I'm not invoking the pick random number. So pick random number, I'm going to invoke it. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to refresh it. And there's my random number. I'm just going to refresh it at 1798. Just see if it goes. Cool. So a bunch of random numbers. Great. Now for the difficult part. When I select a random number and click submit, it needs to perform some logic. It needs to grab this 50 from the input tag, run some logic on it, and test it against the computer generated random number, and then tell the user to pick higher or lower based off of what they tell the user it's in some manner, whether it can be on the page, I can change some stuff, but let's see this. So when I click submit, I want it to do something. How do I grab some event when I click this specific submit button? Does anybody know what kind of event that is?
Is it an on-click event?
Yep. So HTML or events in JavaScript. In JavaScript, HTML, I don't know. Just gonna see this. JavaScript events. So we have button on click. We on like a list of all of them. So we have an on change, on click, on mouse over, on mouse out, on load. I think there's more than that. MDN, JavaScript events. So WebSockets, on click. So these are all these different events. Load start, mouse move, or mouse move, mouse out, mouse over, open. These are all events that JavaScript has that, like, when you interact with the web page, if you have one of these event listeners, you can tell the application to do something. So with that, I need to add an on-click event listener. But where do I add that? Like, I have to like listen to a specific element on the page to see whether that has been clicked and then execute something. So here, if I click like this H1 tag, it doesn't do anything. And I don't want it to do anything. But when I click this submit number tag, this button, I want it to actually do something. So what I can do is I can grab, let's see, if I type in document.get element, there's all these get element. There's also like query selector, but most of the time you'll use get element by ID. And based off of whatever tag ID you have, you can grab that specific element. But in my submit button, I don't have an ID to the button. So with that, I'm just going to add an ID called submit button. Cool. So I'm doing this submit button. And I'm doing this in the console just to see if it works. On click. I'm adding a function to it. You could, I want a console log. Did I click this? So I'm literally just writing this in the console. Document.get element by ID. I'm going to copy that because, all right. So 70. I just want to make sure that this element, so it's got the submit button in the console. I'm creating an on-click event listener. It's like, all right, did that work? So if I click this, so yep, so look at, so when I click it, it's executing this function and console logging, did I click this? So with that, I can grab that document dot get element by ID, submit number, dot on click, add a function. And then here I need to grab, so when I click that button, see if I refresh it, at app.js. So like right here, I'm getting an error, uncaught type error, cannot set property on click of null at app.js. So right now there's something wrong with my, so it's trying to set this on click event of this submit number. Maybe I do need the async. Yep. I have a question?
I thought your button had to have the on-click event registered in your HTML.
You don't have to. That is one way to do it, and it's actually probably easier to do it that way. But I'm just going to do it in like grabbing elements. I'm just want to use JavaScript to grab elements and add listeners to them. But you can have an on-click event listener. Let's see if this works. Why doesn't that work?
I think the event handler is running before the rest of your DOM is loaded. So it doesn't find the element that you're looking for. The get element by ID submit number isn't even in the DOM before that runs.
Right. But why isn't it not? So get element by ID.
Tom, I have async defer. Does it matter if it's defer async?
Oh yeah, hold on.
Go back to your index. Yeah, what'd you call the button?
Yeah, as I say, I don't think your IDs are saying you got submit button and submit number, I think.
Right.
Oh, yep, thank you. That's what it is.
And you don't need both the async and the defer.
Yeah. Thank you. So
Defer calls async. So async just means to load the file asynchronously and then run it whenever it gets returned, and defer calls async and then waits until the DOM is loaded.
So when I enter this and I click this button, so I don't even have to enter. If I just click it, it just says clicked. So now I need to grab the value from this input element. So I'm going to add an ID here called input number. And I'm going to say let guest number equals document dot get element by ID guess, wait, no, input number. And I just want to console log this guest number. So when I click the button, it executes this function, which then grabs this input number from the ID of this input. And I'm assigning it to a variable called guest number, and I'm console logging that guest number. So I S50. Okay, so the entire node showed up, this entire tag, and that's not what I want. Does anybody know how I grab this specific value from the input.
Aren't you able to just assign it?
Value.
So
Yeah.
dot value. Let's see what that looks like. 50. Cool. Great. That works. So now I've got 50. And I can now perform some logic on it. Do I want to convert it to a number? Let's just not get into the error handling of that, any of that. So I'm just going to test it by value, not by type. So I can say like if guessed number equals random number, do something. Console log, you guessed correctly. Else if guessed number is less than random number. You can say console log dot log guess a higher number, else if. I'm just going to do a bunch of else ifs just in case for whatever reason they don't put a number. If guess a lower number. All right. So if I guess, so we have the actual number right here is 83. So if I guess 50, so guess a higher number over here in the console. If I guess, 99, says guess a lower number. If I actually guess 83, you guessed correctly. Cool. But I don't want it to show up here in the console. I actually want it to be input somewhere on the screen. So what I'm going to actually do is I'm going to change this value. I'm going to manipulate the DOM, and instead of having it be here, or which way do I want to do it? One of these two I want to change, and put a number below. And guess I think I'll change this one. So with that, I can actually say, all right. So if I guess the correct number, I can say, so this paragraph tag, so I'm gonna add an ID called game action, just because this is, yeah, I'll just call it game action. Or game instructions. Nope, because that's, yeah, I'll just leave it at game action. So I can say document dot get element by ID, game action dot inner HTML equals U1. So I'm actually able to change the HTML whoops. So I'm actually able to manipulate the DOM or change the HTML of this element of this game action paragraph tag to something else by using this inner HTML. Guess a higher number, guess a lower number. So with that, if I refresh it, it's at 90. If I press 50, watch right here and see, watch it change. Guess a higher number. Let's do 100. Guess a lower number. And then if I click 90, say U1. But now I actually need to append my previous numbers. I also don't like, hold on. when I submit it, I don't like that this stays, my previous selected number stays inside this input tag. So I'm gonna actually do something about that. So the guess number value, I think I could just let reset equals document. How does this work? Number value equals an empty string. And if I actually return reset, because methods are supposed to return something. Let's see if this works. So if I click 50, I want this, when I submit it, to be an empty input. There we go, guess a lower number. I guess 19. So yeah, it resets every time. So that's like a better user experience instead of me having to delete that and continue. All right. Now we just have to make sure, have everything show up on the screen. And I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions about how I'm doing this? I know there's a million ways to do it. If you use the form, that's great. That's one way to do it. If you add an on-click event listener or on-click event inside your HTML button, like on-click, and execute some function. That's another way to do it. This is just the way I'm doing it right now. Does anybody have any questions? Nope. All right. So in my index, so when I select like 50, I want it to show up in a list down below of all my previous numbers. So I'm going to create an ordered list, just an empty one, the idea of selected numbers. And I'm going to say 50. Cool. So with that, I want to append, I want to essentially create, let's see what, if I do li 1, 2, or 1, 2. If I refresh, A, B, oh man. So this is kind of what I want. I want this to show up of my previous selected letter or guesses. Cool. So with that, this is how an ordered list works. Ordered list, you can also have an unordered list, but with that, I want to delete that. And so right now I have an empty ordered list. And I want to create a li tag and then append it to my ordered list. Now, how do I do that? And I assign that list value to, or assign my previous selected guess to that list value. So, check number. I can that's how we create a node. Let's Google it. How to create HTML element in JavaScript. So I've got this document, create element, followed by a button. Okay. So I want to create an element. So let's new node equals document dot create element and have it be a list. And then I could say new node dot value equals guest number. And I'm gonna console log new node. Just see what that looks like. So if I refresh, guess 50. So we have a new node. Does it have a value? Let's see what that looks like. Do I want to create? So that doesn't seem like to be working right. DOM nodes, WC schools. Okay, this looks more, so create a paragraph tag, create a text node. This is new, append child. So this looks more appropriate to what I'm doing. So I'm going to say list tag, create element, and then let node equals document dot create text node. Then I can pass in this guest number, and then I can say list tag dot append child node, and then I can grab let ordered list equals document dot get element by ID, selected numbers, and then ordered list dot append child, and I'm appending the list tag. So right here, I'm creating a new list element that would literally just be like doing that. And then in here, I'm creating a new text node. It's literally just a text node. So we can actually console log node. And I'm assigning the guest number to that node. And I'm appending this value, which is just like the guest number, to the list tag, which is this list. And then I'm appending this list to the ordered list, because this li is a child of this ordered list. So that's what that's for. Let's refresh. Oh, let's actually delete that part. And I can do 50. So here's that 50, that's that text node that I created. And it shows up 50, 10, and then 20. I'm gonna guess it right. Cool. Then it says I won.
So every time you make a new guess, it just makes a new list node, pops at the end?
Exactly.
And that's the append child?
Yes. It actually appends to child. So it creates this text node, which is this part, and it appends it to this list tag, which is just an li. And you can actually see inside the elements. So it creates that li, and then it appends that li, which is here, it's called the list tag, to the ordered list, which I grab by doing this document.getElement by ID.
But in line 15 there, it's smart enough to know that because you're doing an li, you want it's going to do the close tag as well.
I'm sorry? It knows.
Like I don't see here where we've explicitly assigned the close li tag. So the logic in 15 is smart enough to figure that out.
Yeah. So it just knows it, like the li, it's in fact a list tag. I can also do like a paragraph tag, and I can it doesn't have to be a list. It could be a div. selected numbers, and I'm carrying a paragraph. Everything should still work the same. Yep. It's just now it's not a list, it's a paragraph.
Okay.
So this actually probably looks better, but
Hey, Tom, how does your input behave if you put in a number and hit return on your keyboard?
it won't work.
Yeah, is there a trick to capturing that and preventing it? Because mine completely resets, so you could be like 10 guesses in and hit enter by mistake, and the whole thing refreshes. It's annoying.
Really?
Yeah.
If I click enter, yeah, it doesn't. Are you using a form?
Yeah, I went. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah, you disabled.
off the old school.
No, yeah. And that's fine. Like, I mean, forms are like the proper way. You'll more than likely often than not use a form for any type of input. I just wanted to do everything just raw vanilla JavaScript, not having to rely on the functionality of a form. There is if you press enter, I don't know if I know there's a way you can, when you press the submit button for not having it refresh, which is you prevent default. As far as enter, I don't, off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure how to prevent that from refreshing. But yeah.
I'll try switching it around, because like Julian said, I mean, I don't really need the form, since really we're not submitting a form, we're just triggering an on-click event. So
Yeah.
But yeah, with a form, it gets a little bit more interesting.